He's under pressure, and no roughing this time as Clyfield gets the quarterback sack. He's not able to get away from Robbie Clyfield.
The vision was always kind of in the back of my head, he said. How could it not be? Ryan Ramczyk grew up 99 miles from Lambeau Field. 111 miles away, the Badgers played. In Ramczyk's hometown of Stevens Point, Wisconsin, two things stood above the rest: competition and camaraderie.
And football is really kind of everything there. Everyone's huge football fans, it seems like. So, growing up, my dad was a huge Green Bay Packer fan. I was a huge Green Bay Packer fan, and man, from day one, it was like that's all I knew. Go outside, play some football with Dad, catch in the back, and watch the Packers, watch the Badgers. There was a lot revolved around football growing up, that's for sure.
The New Orleans Saints' 26-year-old right tackle developed an affinity for an old gunslinger in his own backyard. Hard to forget tailgates, quite a few excursions to Green Bay, and what he calls a typical kid's dream of desiring to play in the NFL were all seared into his memory. But Ramczyk's unique road to pro football was ultimately spurred by an ambition few are fortunate to realize.
I grew up watching the Packers, so like Brett Favre, loved watching him, and I kind of loved what he did as a player. He was kind of a funny, outgoing, had a great time playing, and you watch him and you could tell he just had a great time playing football. So that's kind of someone I looked up to, but as far as a person that gave me inspiration or anything, I don't really have that. I kind of found it within myself with the path that I took. It was kind of it was kind of all about me, how far can I go? How far can I push myself? How good can I be? So it was kind of like self-driven, I guess, was my motivation.
It's sufficient to say that mindset has paid massive dividends. Ramczyk garnered his third All-Pro nod in his fourth season this year. He's an elite run blocker, he's a technician and a mauler, and he's seemingly only getting stronger. To truly gauge his success, however, it's imperative that we rewind to revisit the ride from a town of roughly 25,000 people to the Big Easy. Ramczyk's introduction to the game featured a litany of responsibilities.
I was all over the place, flag football, and then I think we started pads in third grade. But yeah, I was playing quarterback, running back, linebacker, offense, defensive line. I kind of played it all.
He did so until it became clear to his coaches in junior high that their soon-to-be hulking fullback was better suited for a permanent position in the trenches. In high school, he sprouted into an all-state selection on the offensive line. His athleticism helped fend off defenders and collect numerous accolades. But at 6'5", 240 pounds his senior season, Ramczyk was slimmer than thick, and thinks as a result he was a bit overlooked. Big-time college programs, save for one, displayed minimal interest. Pittsburgh coach Paul Chryst, who had just left Wisconsin's offensive pastures, extended an offer late in the recruiting process. But at that point, Ramczyk had committed in his mind to attend Winona State University, a Division II school just hours from Stevens Point. Although his stint there didn't last particularly long. Ramczyk opted to hang up his cleats just weeks before his first fall semester, and momentarily appeared to be finished playing football for good. He first enrolled at one tech school and then another, debating what passion to pursue next, leaning either toward law enforcement or a trade such as welding. In the meantime, he worked the counter and sold refreshments at a local Quick Trip.
Call it 6 months later, or whatever it was, that's kind of where it was all right, I'm missing the game, I'm missing being around the guys, the team atmosphere, all that stuff. So that's kind of where it started.
Reality hit Ramczyk like a ton of bricks.
It's man, what did I just give up? Obviously I played football my whole life, so I didn't know what it was like to not have football in my life. And I think when I didn't have it, it was like, oh man, like kind of a realization. And then I kind of was like, all right, I got to get back into this.
But the where and how was left unanswered, at least before rekindling an old flame of sorts. Ramczyk wound up resuming his football career on the same field he dominated as a prepster, after his former high school coach made some calls and got the ball rolling for him at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. That's right, the National Football League's premier right tackle, Ryan Ramczyk, a Wisconsin native, launched into his college football career at UWSP, Division III school with an undergraduate enrollment of merely 7,000-something students. It's hard to fathom, but the fit was flawless from the jump, in part because everyone shared something in common.
D3 is a little bit different. It's really, guys are playing for the love of the game at that point.
Meaning it's humbling to a degree.
They don't have the fancy locker rooms and the meal programs and all, everything you get catered into at a Division I school. So it is like, obviously the play steps up a little bit, better players, all that stuff. But to a point, yeah, it's kind of like a high school atmosphere because, like I said, guys are there because they love the game of football.
That shared sentiment proved to be everything. Ramczyk never felt he was missing out on something bigger. He cherished having family and friends close enough that they could watch front and center each time he played. Plus, he said, the dudes he met, some who loved hunting and fishing as much as him, made the experience memorable.
To be able to go into an atmosphere like that with a bunch of other guys who are playing it for the love of the game, it was cool. And I think, honestly, it's what I needed. I think, I look back on it and most people say, oh yeah, I'd love to go play Division I right away, 4 or 5 years. But for me, I think it was the right path. I think it's what I needed for sure.
The timing was right as well. On the heels of consecutive honor-winning campaigns at UWSP, Ramczyk was ready for an elevated environment. He got his shot from a familiar face. Paul Christ was returning to man the operation in Madison, and Ramczyk was determined to earn a spot on the team.
Went to a couple different colleges and kind of took a crazy path, but yeah, I ended up there, and the rest is history.
There, as in the program Ramczyk had respected and affectionately followed his whole life. Evidently, his unorthodox path led him exactly where he was supposed to be.
For me, it was like, all right, I kind of want to see how good I can be, how far I can go, and there was no better time to try than then. Everything, stars kind of aligned, I guess you would say.
Ramczyk's next step was astronomical. The leap from Division III to Big Ten ball finally afforded him the set of experiences he dreamt up as a rabid Badger supporter.
Especially going from a D3 school, it's like you're going to the NFL at that point. Like all the facilities, everything. You got the huge crowd, huge stadium. So it was, overwhelming, but in a good way. But yeah, it was a great time. It was everything I could ever dreamed of.
A redshirt year, 14 starts at left tackle en route to consensus first-team All-America recognition, and just one surrendered sack later, and Ramczyk was primed to make another quantum leap. New Orleans wisely paid little mind to his limited tape at the highest level, selecting the 6'6", 314-pound stalwart with the last pick of the first round in 2017. Ramczyk has since made that decision look brilliant, starting all 63 regular season games he's appeared in. His consistency on the football field can likely be attributed to his consistency as a person. Ramczyk sets and conquers his goals like he sets in his pass block and crushes the will of his opponents.
I've had a lot of goals in my career and followed those closely.
Some are giant, others are not. Regardless, they serve a similar purpose.
It's very important to have goals, to set goals for yourself, whether those goals are huge or they're just tiny little things that you can try to improve on each day. I think it's very important to set those goals for yourself. Like when I went to Madison, it was like, all right, my first goal is to make this team and to be a starter on this team. And then from there, once I got the starting role, it was like, all right, now I need to improve on my kick step. I need to improve on where I'm carrying my hands. So it's little things like that, but it's also big things. Then it's on to, I want to be an All-American. Then I want to go play in the Big Ten championship game. So team goals, personal goals. It's really important to have those goals to keep pushing yourself, driving yourself to become a better player.
Ramczyk admits he doesn't necessarily write his goals down, but that they're usually on his mind, if not something he's actively working on.
It's just something that to be a great player and to get to where you want to be personally, it's something that you have to chip away at constantly and kind of have the self-realization that you're never as good as you want to be, and there's always room for improvement.
That's an awfully refreshing statement coming from a player at the pinnacle of his position. It's that mindset, though, that allows Ramczyk to ascend further and further in his football career. He's never complacent. He's always on the hunt for ways to advance his skill set.
I think as I've grown throughout college and the NFL, you kind of try to take things from other people's game and kind of put it into your game. For example, I've watched a lot of David Bakhtiari, I've watched a lot of Joe Thomas, and just kind of trying to pick little things out here and there that they did really well, like hand placement or how they're stepping, or just really small details like that. And, I think I've grown that way, and just being able to take bits and pieces out of other people's games.
Two habits that Ramczyk is determined to correct are opening the gate in his pass set and intuitively dropping his right hand in pass protection. He said he tends to do the latter, which in turn rotates his hips and creates a shorter corner for pass rushers. If he can carry and extend his right hand a little bit higher, he said, his body will stay square, forcing defenders into tiring situations. It's attention to detail like this, among other practices, that's helped propel Ramczyk to stardom.
The jump from college to the NFL, as far as being a professional, I think I've come a long way in that, and just knowing my body, how to take care of my body, how to diet correctly, how to put the right kind of food and nutrition into my body. That's been really big. Studying differently, watching a little bit more film. And that's hard to do in college, because obviously you're going to school too. So it's a little bit harder to do in college, but I think I've done a really good job in the NFL of transitioning into more of a professional role.
Part of that transition, Ramczyk said, is embracing the fact that playing in the NFL is a full-time profession. There's no designated support staff that checks in to see whether you're tackling responsibilities or staying on task. There's nobody checking to make sure you're prepared to go to war on the weekend. Players perform or fail to perform on their own accord.
It's a different dynamic from college to the NFL. College is it's a little bit more hand-holding, and everything's laid out for you, which it should be, because college is a crazy time, especially, you're at a D1 program, you got school, and school isn't easy. So, you have to stay on top of your schooling, you got to stay on top of your film, your body, all that stuff. So they kind of make you do everything, where the NFL is like, you're getting paid for this is your job, you have to hold yourself accountable. No one's going to call you and say, hey man, you didn't watch any film, what are you doing? Like, no, that's going to show up on Sunday. If you didn't watch film, you're going to get beat. So it's a lot more on your own in the NFL, and being responsible for your actions, and being a professional.
And part of being a professional, Ramczyk notes, is trusting that the man next to you is going to fulfill his assignment. An expectation built upon repetition and practice, and communication away from the action. An expectation that profits team-wide chemistry, apparent especially along the Saints' offensive line, whose primary objective is protecting Drew Brees.
We take care of each other. Drew takes really good care of us, but we take a lot of pride in keeping him clean. Throughout the week, we're going over the game plan, looking at the pressures, blitzes, all that stuff, and trying to figure out anything we can do to keep him clean. And I think there's a lot of trust between the offensive line and quarterback. He has to trust that we know what we're doing, how to pick up certain stunts, blitzes, all that type of stuff.
There's certainly no room for blind faith in the NFL. There's too much at stake each down, too much potential for danger each snap. Ramczyk learned the importance of trust, and perhaps more importantly, how to trust, before ever being thrust into Sunday's arena.
When I was a rookie, my first year with the Saints, I messed up a pressure pretty bad during camp, and Drew got irritated, obviously, and after practice he came up to me and we talked through it, and he's like, man, if you ever need anything, let me know, questions, whatever. So it's pretty awesome to have someone like that on our team that you're able to communicate with freely, openly, and talk like that to someone of that stature.
Ramczyk, like New Orleans' entire offensive line, hasn't benefited recently from stability under center. Brees has fallen victim to a share of injuries the past 2 years, including 11 broken ribs and a collapsed lung in November, which opened the door for Taysom Hill to lead the Saints to a respectable 3-1 record. Teddy Bridgewater filled in admirably going undefeated in 2019 when the future Hall of Fame quarterback was sidelined for 5 games with torn ligaments in his thumb. Although it's virtually impossible that someone else ever matched the impact Brees has, from Ramczyk's perspective, the differences are subtle. His approach is almost identical.
When Drew commands the huddle, he's in, he's out, he's so efficient, he's so consistent with what he does. So I would say it's a little bit different of a feeling, but as far as your mindset, like your mindset doesn't really change. You have to do your job, you got to do it well, and it really doesn't matter who is back there. At the end of the day, you got to go execute your job.
Execute your job. 3 simple words. 3 simple words aimed to motivate individuals that often also dictate a team's success. It's not some secret ingredient, but a critical component in the grand scheme of things, according to Ramczyk, who does an excellent job outlining factors that combine to build a strapping football team.
I'll speak for the Badgers, I'll speak for the Saints. They do a great job in bringing great players in. Obviously in college they're recruiting guys, in the NFL they're scouting guys and the combine and the draft and all that stuff. I think they both programs do a fantastic job of bringing great guys in. They got to screen these guys and say, are they going to fit into our locker room? Like, that's a big part in creating a winning culture and a great culture, and I think both programs have done a really good job at that. Another thing is communication. You have to be able to talk with your teammates on the field, off the field, and be able to have open, honest conversations. Football is a rough sport. Guys get hit all the time, and you got to be able to kind of take yourself away from that and go over what happened and kind of hold each other accountable. I guess another thing is just celebrating. So, you got to be able to have fun and take those little victories and especially in the NFL, man, it's so hard to get wins in the NFL. So to take those small victories and build on them is definitely key.
What's up, everyone? I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of my new mini-series, Runnin It Back with Rob K. I was thrilled to have the opportunity to sit down with Ryan Ramczyk for an exclusive interview back in October, when Saints players were enjoying their bye week and I was still grinding my way through the final semester of my sports journalism master's degree program at Arizona State. Ryan and I chatted for nearly 45 minutes, even though he only promised me 20. It means a great deal that I can help share his story. I enjoyed our conversation because he was so upbeat, honest, and took time answering my questions. It was so obvious to me that he loves the game of football and is thankful for his own unique journey. It's hard not to root for a guy like that. I wanted to make this episode and likely future episodes more about the player's path to professional football than the actual games and wins and losses. Why? Honestly, because I'm curious. I'm curious about the hardships, the lessons learned, the nuggets of luck, and the strategies some guys took to get to where they are now, which is essentially the peak of their profession. I'm curious about the motivations, the self-reflection, and the burning passions. But with all that said, I'm also interested in learning about some of the more trivial things, like what players eat pre-game, or listen to moments before lacing their cleats and storming the field. For what it's worth, Ramczyk does have a go-to meal, the closest thing he says he has to a ritual. Salmon, noodles with Alfredo, and don't forget the broccoli. Now, to close out this episode, here's something extra, and a quick disclaimer. I'm actively seeking a job in sports media, so my timeline may need to change, but my present goal is to release parts 2, 3, and 4 sometime this spring. In the meanwhile, welcome to Overtime.
Oh man, I don't have that problem. I wear size 15, but man, I'm not picky. I wear, I think they're called Nike Roche, something like that. Super comfortable, super light. I'm not picky though. I'll wear just about anything. I didn't give up a sack to him, but Chandler Jones gave me a lot of fits. Man, he is a good player. Still is a great player, obviously. But he was very athletic, quick, speed to power. Hard to figure out his rush. He's a very talented player. That's a tough one, man. I'd probably say Aaron Carlin. He was a defensive end at UWSP, but the man was hilarious. Man, he was so funny, always having a great time. A really good player too. He went and played the Canadian Football League for a little bit. But man, he was hilarious, and we had similar interests, hunting and fishing and all that stuff. I don't listen to music. I really don't. A lot of guys do, a lot of guys love it, swear by it, and that's their routine. But my routine, I don't listen to any music. Our locker room is actually quiet. Everyone kind of does their own thing, which is good. I think everyone has their own routine and goes through what they need to go through before a game. I kind of just get in my zone and go through checks mentally and think about what I got going. I definitely visualize a lot. Seeing myself be successful, winning, yeah, I visualize quite a bit. Man, it was like back to fundamentals. Just go through your set, go through your progression, and really just rely on your fundamentals, because I feel like I had never played anyone with his type of style and quickness and the way he just kind of, used his hands. It was a little different, a little unique, and like I said, I just had to go back to fundamentals, fall back on those, and do my thing. I think I really love the game of football because of, I think there's two things. One is kind of, being around the guys, having fun, kind of that camaraderie and that team aspect. I love that, and I think that's something I really missed when I wasn't playing football. So I think that's a huge thing. I think that's why I really love football. And another, I think, would be just the, I guess, how do you say it? Just the competition, I guess. I've always been a competitive person. And I think that it fuels me, and it's always about winning. That's kind of how I've always been. So I think those are two of the reasons why I love it.